Hello and welcome to the Merri-Cast, the show that puts you on the fast track to confidence in starting and growing your business. My guest this week is Steve Ramona. Now, Steve is all about the network. He describes himself as a sort of super connector, specialising in impactful partnerships. But that doesn't really cover it, really. I mean, he specialises in the energy industry and is involved in quite a lot of partnerships, $5 billion worth of projects and $125 million in partnership deals. In addition to all of this, Steve hosts a very, very popular podcast called Doing Business with a Servant's Heart, which is kind of at the heart of what he loves to talk about, and it reaches an audience of over 50,000 people per episode. Now, growing up in California, Steve had his mind on something else. In fact, he had his own heart set on something else as a kid.
When I was growing up, my uncle played for the New York Giants, football, American football. That was my thing, sports, baseball. Football was that because of my uncle. So I thought I'd play pro football. Unfortunately, God said you're going to be 5'8" and a half, 5'9", 185 pounds, 160 pounds. Wasn't big enough, fast enough. Had the will to do it, but just wasn't able to do it. But what sports taught me, even to this day, has helped me grow personally and professionally.
In what way did it sort of help you?
Team, first of all. Can't do entrepreneurship alone. If you try, you will fail. Now, I'm saying you need to hire 20 people, one person, two people. There's that phrase out there, 5 closest people to you or reflect who you are. I always forget that. I believe that to a point, but it's different for everybody. This is not a solo journey. Even though solopreneur is one of the words we use, you can't do it alone. And I help a lot of entrepreneurs as one of those mentors to help them keep going. Because when a crisis comes up, or a situation comes up, who are you going to talk to? You're going to look in the mirror and talk to yourself? Yeah, maybe that works, but it's so much better. I've done this millions of times in my life to talk to somebody. Hey, I've got this thing going on. What's your suggestion? What's your suggestion? Reaching out to people. You should have mentors. I don't say it's necessary, but I believe that's what's changed my life is my mentors in my life. And you should go out and seek them. And a mentor could be a podcast. Like listen to your podcast, Trevor. It's a fantastic podcast. Or reading a book, or actually having a physical mentor that maybe you meet with monthly on a Zoom or in person or wherever it be. But it's vital. That's what I learned. But I also learned discipline, hard work. I remember playing sports, baseball. I was a big football guy. I played all 3 sports as a freshman. By senior year, I was just playing football. And I'm like, I'm going to try out for the baseball team. My buddies are out there. I love baseball. Well, I made the team only for one reason, because Coach said, you worked hard. And I made the team, didn't play a lot.
I mean, we've had someone who will be very well known in your world of American football called Tom Brady, of course, who's become a part owner in Birmingham City over here. And one of his first observations of the footballers was that they were lazy and entitled. They weren't working hard. And it's a great series, by the way, over here. I'd recommend that to many people. Let's get back to you, though, in terms of as you were sort of growing up. So American football was a big influence. What other influences were there on the young Steve?
First, thank you for associating me with Tom Brady, because I saw him growing up. He grew up in my area. So I saw him play high school football, and we won't go there. He was amazing. My cousin, so at 18, again, my football career wasn't over yet. So I was going to junior college, 2-year school to play football. So my family launched a health club in 78. So I didn't have a job. I'm a senior, just graduated. I'm going to go to the beach, but I need money. Family, parents were going to give me money. They said, you got to earn it now. You're 18. So I got a job at the health club. And one of the lessons my cousin, Jeff Ramona is his name, same last name as me. I love him so much. He taught me customer service, serving. And one of the simple ways is, an audience, when you listen, here's a simple way to learn how to serve, but to serve every day, is people would check in. You'd get your card, Trevor, and you check in. Well, I saw 1,000 people a day. I mean, we had a busy club, really successful club. And we would make sure we'd say their name. That was the mantra of the front desk people. Say their name when they come in, and say their name when they leave. But people would come in, well, I don't remember everybody's names. I said, when they slide their card, look at the computer screen. Hey, Trevor, have a great day. They don't know the difference. And when they're leaving, going, oh, Trevor, hey, have a great day. But what happens when you start talking, just using people's names, go to a grocery store. Somebody bags your groceries, look at their name tag. Hey, Tony, thank you for bagging my groceries. Tony, have a great day. Say their name 2 times in a conversation. Now, people go, how's that affect me? Universe. I believe in God, but God or the universe will reward you when you take care of people that way. People want to be seen, and that's what you're doing.
So there's, a service element, and that was obviously a massive influence in what you're doing. Did you think I'm going to end up as an entrepreneur at that stage, or were you thinking I'm going to work in somebody else's business? What was the thought process at that time? Was it something conscious in you at that moment?
It was when pro football said, Steve, you're not going to play pro football. I learned early, thank God. My dad was a contractor, entrepreneur. He built homes all my life. So he'd go leave. He had a couple partners, but I learned it from my dad, who was another mentor of mine, a brilliant businessman, and really taught me the ropes of running a business, being that entrepreneur, being on time is 15 minutes early, being authentic, put people to the fence, meaning tell them when they're doing something wrong, reward them when they're doing something right, say something, but be genuine and authentic. And what's amazing when you do that, the relationships you built are massive. And I'll tell you, when I started working at the front desk, I eventually stayed there and worked 20 years. And when we sold, I was there, became the director of operations and so on and so forth. We opened 3 clubs, so we got really big. But I started building these relationships. I have friends today that I met back in 82, 83, 84. They're friends because they come in and work out. I'd either work out with them, but I built these relationships. And I'll tell you a quick story. People would walk up to me and go, Steve, I don't know how you're going to get married. I'm like, why do you say that? Because Steve, you know so many people, you're going to have to get the stadium to rent the stadium to bring 30,000 people to your wedding, which they didn't know I couldn't. But then I started realizing I did. I'd go out to dinner. Hey, there's a guy from Royal Courts is the name of the club. Hey, there's Steve from Royal Courts. Hey, Steve. Hey, Steve. And people going, God, you know everybody. Well, it's not because I connected, not because I said their name, but I brought them value by building relationships. And if the entrepreneur is not doing that, you're missing a boat.
Okay, so that's a really important point, because you talk about, and we'll get onto the podcast very soon, but doing business with the servant's heart. I'm emphasizing the word heart in there because, let's be honest, there are many businesses that talk about customer service, but I would argue are not necessarily doing it from the heart, that they know there's this thing that they ought to do called customer service. I mean, let's call it pseudo service, where they're not really sort of delivering. I mean, do you find that very easy to spot, as somebody who's, talking all the time about the servant's heart, the difference between the two?
Yeah, all day, all night, I can see it. And the phrase has been out there for 50 years is customer knows best. Customer's always right. It's not true. Doesn't mean that you treat customers bad or you treat your clients bad. But if you're an entrepreneur and you have a client that's just really hard to work with, you're making money on them, is the money more important or your peace of mind? Because here's where the service part comes in and the servant's heart. Because a lot of people serve and go, hey, Trevor, here's 3 referrals, but I expect 3 referrals back. I did serve you by introducing you to 3 people, but that, hey, please bring me 3 referrals, it takes the heart away from it. When I introduce people, I don't expect anything but an introduction, people meet, what happens from there, that's serving. So when you're working with people that aren't a fit, when you keep them on, you're not serving them and they're not serving you. So a servant's heart has to say no sometimes.
That's a fantastic answer, because I mean, before the show, I was discussing what servant's heart sort of means, and you said bring value and uplift every person you meet. The gift of serving brings the gift of receiving. For everyone, it's a true win-win. But that doesn't necessarily mean just saying yes, you're right. That's a really important point to make.
Yeah, it's in businesses or entrepreneurs that have a team. You've got an employee that's just not working out. You have that conversation from a servant's heart, like, hey, Joe, you're not a fit in our sales. It doesn't seem you're comfortable. How about we put you in the HR department? You work well with people. What do you think? You work with them. Or, hey, Joe, I've got to let you go. I don't think you're comfortable. It's not working for us, but here's where a servant heart comes in. You know what, Joe? I've talked to my competitor. I have a position waiting for you there. I want you to meet Tony. He's going to help you get a job there. I think you're a great fit there. See what I did there?
Yes.
Served, said no, but it kept serving.
What then led you to move from that, which is obviously a very core philosophy for you, into setting up a podcast? I mean, it's a podcast, you could argue on one level, as a vehicle for talking about these things. I mean, when you set it up, did you think, oh, well, I'll just set up a podcast because I just want to talk to interesting people? Or did you set it up at the beginning with the servant's heart in mind? I'm just interested in the origins, because very often things don't turn out the way you set them up for any of us.
Servant's heart. I wanted to take my clients at the time that I had a business that I was part owner and highlight them. That was my main goal. And I thought it would be fun to do a podcast. I know a lot of people talk, but like you just said earlier, I want to bring value and uplift. And when you bring somebody on a podcast, like you've brought me on, you're bringing me value as well as I'm bringing you value. And it was and then people start resonating with it. I became, I was not good at the beginning. I was learning, but you don't have to do much as a podcast host, but let people tell their stories, talk about themselves, which a lot of people want to be seen and do that. And the crazy thing is, when I had that mindset of a servant's heart, Trevor, guess what happened? Hey, you need to meet Steve. He's got a great podcast. Hey, billionaire, you need to meet Steve. You need to be on his show. Hey, so-and-so, you need to be on his show. To this day, just this morning, I had 4 referrals for my podcast. I am booking in February of 2026, where if you're listening today, it's August of 2025. Treating people right, people will come. But the podcast has been my network. There's networking groups out there, and they're great. If you want to meet people, it's a great way to get started. I ran 5 of them for years. But with the podcast, I found is I control the network now. If Tony's not a fit for me, my podcast, or my business, I may not bring him on. But now I can grab people that fit me, that I can meet with, build a relationship within an hour, and get tons of referrals and bring them tons of referrals or tips or resources.
Okay, I want to just develop that, because I think this is a fascinating area of what you do. So you set it up originally with clients in mind. You want to sort of talk about your clients, interesting people, give them a chance to sort of showcase what they do, listen to their stories, get that. And then you got, then it becomes a kind of also a new business marketing sort of network as well. And then this phrase that I've heard you use, your network is your net worth, which I love, by the way. And so what you're essentially saying, it's not just network is a good way to get new business, or network is a good way to showcase your clients. It's actually saying it's the whole thing. It's the whole way in which a business like yours sort of operates. We'll get on to a bit more about specialisms in your business. Have I got that right?
Absolutely. And here's that phrase, what it really means, to simplify it. Everybody listening, and you and me, are in the people business, people asset business. What's an asset? It's grow. In financial, is your asset growing or is it not? I do a lot of funding, looking for funding for projects. What assets do you have to bring to the table for funding? Well, that works for every single entrepreneur in the world. If you do not have people that are an asset to your business, you will not grow. Let's go back to the start. Again, you need people. You can't do this alone. But it's an asset, because guess what? You meet Tony Smith, and Tony Smith gives you 20 referrals, and 2 of those become clients. Is Tony an asset, Trevor? And what did I do? I took Tony, I had him on my podcast, I built a relationship, I sent him some value, some resources, tips, or introductions. So when he walks out of that podcast, he's like, oh my God, this guy promoted me. He got to know me, promoted me because I recorded a podcast that goes out to my network. And then we talked after, and I gave him more value. Here's serving. I'm going to give you a visual. And if you're listening to this, I'll explain it to you. So most people that serve at chin level. They give an introduction, may say somebody's name. It's great. But how would you like to be incredible? Just a rock star service heart or a servant's heart. So instead of chin level it up to your nose level. So think of your chin and take it to the next level, your nose. What more ways can I serve somebody? I think of this every day. What ways can I serve? My podcast has changed so much because of better ways to serve. It's a valuable tool.
Okay, so that's, I mean, it's a great analogy, and I know that listeners at the moment are probably putting their hands to their chins and then to their noses and listen, as they listen along with you. Now, your sort of specialism is in the renewables sector, and I just want to talk about, because it strikes me that we'll talk about the sector and why you've got a passion for that sector, but your podcast is kind of renewable in two senses. One, because of obviously it chimes with your specialism, but also the way you're talking about podcasting is that, you can learn something from every show. You build great relationships with guests. To me, that feels like a personal renewable for you. It's kind of giving you energy. It's recycling for you. I mean, have I got that right in terms of, like, it's not just a business thing in this particular sector, but it's also kind of being true to who you are and who you want to be?
Renewable, personally renewable. I love that. Renewable energy. You nailed it. I'm going to borrow that too.
Yeah,
because here, I'll tell you, and we're going to share it together, because here's the other thing. It's okay to be selfish as a servant heart. That makes sure you get something that you're abundant with it. If you make $1 million, I'm not saying give away $1 million, but help other people. I do free mentoring, as you know, podcast host mentoring for free, never charged. And I do free business entrepreneur mentoring twice a month. People go, why do you do that? I mean, you could charge, you could be a coach. One, I don't want to be a coach. It doesn't fit my personality. But it's the universe again. I'm going to this multiple times. The universe and God will reward you. But the problem with people, they don't know how, when, or where, because they'll go, Steve, I've got bills to pay. I need money. Yeah, but you need people first before you make any money. So why not you build people up, uplift them, bring them value? The universe will come to you. And I'll give you a good example. So I was at the chiropractor office. My chiropractor loves me. I've known him 15 years. And this guy was sitting there and he goes, hey, Steve, you need to talk to this guy. His son just left his job and he's worried about what he's going to do. He wants to be an entrepreneur, but doesn't know what to do. So this gentleman talked to me briefly. I said, yeah, have him call me. He goes, do you charge? I said, no, 30 minutes, 40. I'll talk to him. So about 3 weeks later, I get the call from the son and we start talking and we get done. And I get this a lot. I'm going to say, this is why I serve, and you should all serve. He got emotional and he said, this is the most hope I've had for my career in 6 months. I was like, wow, okay. And then we finished off, gave him some things to do and said, follow up with me if you have any questions. Well, next morning I woke up doing some work and a PayPal email comes in. I made $500 was thrown into my PayPal. I have no idea where it came from. So I was working, an hour later, I looked at it again and go, oh my God, that's the guy I introduced to the coach and he signed up for his program and that was my commission. It doesn't happen. I know. Isn't that amazing? Now, it doesn't happen but 1 to 5% of the time. But if I look back at my last year, the opportunity doors have been opening as an entrepreneur are massive. Renewable energy. I started out 11 months ago. I knew nothing about renewable energy, but doors come opening, and me and my partner, Max, shout out to Max. He's an incredible guy. I love him. We started developing this company. And like to this day, we've got cities we're building, land people want us to work with. We have 18 partners in that in 11 months.
Hang on, sorry, I'm not going to let you get beyond this point for the moment. You are building cities with partners. Just come on, you've got to expand on that a little bit. That's quite a big thing. So tell me all about that.
So we're part of a project in Nevada, Oregon border where there's 2 lithium mines. Lithium, is one of the most popular resources, batteries. And now they say lithium can reverse dementia. Actually, in the UK, some scientists have found that. So this resource is powerful. Well, the problem is it's a town of 100 people. Well, they're going to bring thousands of workers in to work there. the city can't handle them right now. So we need to build clinics, hotels, concert halls, restaurants, etc., like a city. And I found partners through my podcasting and through my network that can do all this for us. And we just partner along and, share in the wealth of what goes on with that. Plus, by the way, we're getting jobs for indigenous tribes that were next to us. So there's a social impact. That came from my podcast. And then California City is a project we have in Southern California where a gentleman, Chase, was on my podcast. And we had a great podcast, and they're developing the city. So I reached out and said, hey, I've started this company. Is there any way we can help you? He goes, absolutely. So 8 weeks ago, we started working with them, and we're starting to build the city to put renewable energy in, build affordable housing. But it all leads back to building a relationship in the podcast. If I was a host that really was negative, not a servant's heart, because I've listened to some podcast hosts, and it's okay, that's your style. They put people to the wall. Well, Trevor, why are you doing what you're doing? You're not going to make any money. Tell me how you're going to make money. To me, that's not the way to do a podcast. I want to build relationships. But that's the fruition of all that. 780 shows I've done is this all coming about.
I know exactly what you mean. Here in the UK, we call it the sort of where are the bodies buried line of questioning, sort of where you are asking those sort of interrogative journalistic things, which it's kind of gone out of fashion a little bit, thank goodness. And I think, certainly through podcasts, you can tell more uplifting sort of questions. Now, I'm just interested in, a lot of people, who are either starting out or finding their feet as entrepreneurs, or they're being told, find your niche, so does that mean then that when you are interviewing people, you've got nearly 800 shows now that people can listen to. Are you thinking actively in terms of a renewables niche, or are you just looking for interesting people? I mean, I'm just interested in whether you have a sort of leaning towards certain types of guests rather, or is it just sort of people with interesting stories? I'm open to anyone.
Three things. Well, I'm open to anyone, but the three qualifications are: can they motivate, can they inspire, and can they educate? I feel that's a fantastic podcast, and I've proven it over 780 shows. The ones that do that and the audience feels that, it's powerful. I had church on Sunday. I'm serving coffee, and guy walks up, Ram, and he goes, oh my God, I've been listening to your podcast. Those two ladies inspired me like crazy. Thank you so much. In baseball to American baseball, Grand Slam in America football, that's a goal. That's a game-winning goal, because our goal is to impact people on podcasts, I believe. I think a lot of people agree with me. So that's the power of it. So, because here's the thing. You're an entrepreneur, you have a podcast, you're talking to somebody that owns an accounting firm, billion-dollar accounting firm. This guy's a rock star. And you get, well, that's not a fit for you, for me in renewable energy. But when I get done, I give them some referrals. Say, hey, man, what a great job. You talked about this. Really edify. That's another word. Edify people like crazy. That's why saying their name is edification. And then if they don't ask, which they do a lot of the time, I go, hey, Tony, here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for $100 million for a project I have. Do you happen to know anybody in your network that could help me? I'd love an introduction. But you could be a business coach. You can be a mindset coach. You can be agency. Any entrepreneur can do that with anybody, but especially on a podcast. And you should be, here's a tip for entrepreneurs. Ask. Make sure you bring value first, of course. But I just learned this, so I'm going to share this with you. There's a movie called Field of Dreams.
Yes, I know it well.
Kevin Costner, remember the dad scene? At the end playing catch, I'm going to get emotional because I lost my dad in 17. We used to play catch. But what my pastor had said, which was brilliant because he was playing catch with his son and he didn't know his dad. And he said, that's what service is. I throw the ball to somebody, they throw it back. I throw an introduction, they throw me back a resource. We play catch back and forth, back to that win-win. But now you're building a relationship by bringing value.
If they don't throw the ball back, though, that doesn't necessarily be a bad thing. It might be that they just don't know how to throw the ball back at that moment, and it may be that in a year's time, so it's not like a time limited sort of relationship, is it? Because it might be that something has you've planted a seed in some way through the servant's heart, and that the response might not be immediate, but to leave things open because in a year's time they say, but Steve, you just reminded me, and actually I've been meaning to talk to you for a while. Sorry, I've been a bit slow getting back to you, or throwing the ball in the case of this analogy.
Yeah.
So is that a rule that we should sort of never shut the door, even if people don't reciprocate?
So when you're throwing the ball back, and thank you, that's a great addendum to this. So thank you, you've helped me. Is you're not necessarily throwing to Tony, you're throwing to Tony's network. Hey, Tony, here's some referrals. Throw the ball. He throws the ball back by introducing me to 3 people. Or the universe or God's throwing the ball back to me and going, here's an opportunity. Or, and it's such a great point that you made. You don't necessarily have to, because I've had people go, a lot of people, well, 50% of people I meet go, God, I don't know anybody in renewable energy space. I can't help you. That's okay. No worries. When you do, I love introduction. Here's the power of that. In this year alone, I've had, I think it's 3 people send me referrals that I haven't talked to in over 6 months. Think about that. In over 6 months, we've had no contact. They go, you got to meet Steve. He's got the most incredible podcast. You got to meet Steve. Oh my God, he's a great guy to get to know. He can help you. When you establish that brand, 3 to 5 referrals I get every day for the last 24 months. Audience, think about that. I'm kind of patting myself on the back, but I'm not special. You all listening, and you, Trevor, can have the same thing, but I take action by serving, bringing value, building a relationship, being authentic, being, energy is not that important, but just your first thought when you jump on a call with somebody, how can I uplift them? That's what I do. Before I got on this podcast, how am I going to bring Trevor, the best of me?
By the way, dear listener, we'll be putting the link to Steve's podcast in the show notes, because it's fantastic. Listen, I want to get on to surprising or memorable stories to come out of your interviews. Can you just sort of maybe pick one, that you'd say that just story just blew me away, and why was that?
Alfonso James was on last year on my podcast. I'd heard his story. He was in jail for 32 years, but it's an emotional show. It's one of the ones I've cried. So he was 17 years old, and he got in a scuffle before. Actually, he got stabbed in there. So the cops came over, and they thought they were coming over for that, but they got taken care of. Both parents talked. But Alfonso was illiterate. He stopped school at 8th grade, at 8 years old, excuse me. No father and all that in Wisconsin. So the police say, hey, can he come down? We've got to talk to him about something that happened. Of course, you're going to say yes, what's going on. So he went down there with the mom, and for hours they grilled him about a murder. Well, finally, he's getting tired. He's 17. He's hungry. You want to have some lunch? You want to go see your mom? Yeah. So he signs a piece of paper, which he couldn't read, and leaves, sees his mom. Well, while he's seeing his mom, he's arrested for murder. Because the letter said, I committed murder. I killed this, I forget who it was. It was a prevalent person in the area. Well, when he went to trial, he had 3 witnesses that showed he was never there at the time of the murder. The public defender did not bring the witnesses. So he went to jail for 32 years. 32 years. He spent putting my 5 fingers up, 5 years in solitary because he became a prisoner. When you live in that culture, he started fighting, becoming somebody he's not, because he's a really good kid. A pastor found him as he was walking through solitaire, and Alfonso was so upset, so changed as a man, he would throw his urine on him to get him away from his cell. He's by himself. But the pastor was just trying to pray to him. One day, the pastor said something that really shook him. And he said, Pastor, wait a minute. Tell me more about God. When they kept coming back, stop throwing urine. Every time the pastor would come in, I laughed. He'd have towels around because he knew the urine was coming. But he kept coming. I think that resilience from the pastor really clicked with Alfonso too. And so he finally got out. His beautiful girlfriend, who was on the show with me, and she was just so wonderful. They finally got out. And I said on the show, I said, And audience, think about this, because I've met him a couple of times. He was so grateful. He was so happy. He was so joyful. And people are complaining because something happened in their life. A TV show didn't come on. Here's a guy who spent 2 years in prison. I asked him this pointed question. Alfonso, I personally don't know how I could not be angry. I hope I wouldn't. But why are you so joyful and graceful? And he said this one thing. Steve, I wake up in the morning now. I drive to the lake. I sit on a bench. I see the sunrise. I hear the birds flying by singing. And I feel and see the ripple of the lake as it goes by me. I didn't see that for 32 years. The simplest things in life we miss out until we're put in that situation. And I can't say always, but that I've told that story 100 times. Now he's coming back to my podcast for a follow-up because he's speaking in prisons now to talk to people that wrongfully convicted, how they can have hope and faith. And it was such a lesson I learned. It's changed my life. Now, if I did have a podcast, that never would have happened. So selfishly, as a podcast host, we can build ourselves. And as we build ourselves, we can serve people better. If you're not a good person, if you're not serving yourself with personal development, being good, bettering yourself, doing good things, whatever that may be, it's hard to serve others. So I work hard on my personal development and myself to be a good person.
Okay, that's a wonderful story that you've just told there. Out of the back of your podcast, through doing it, you've sort of built this massive, credible network. It's helped your business to prosper. Now, we're not necessarily recommending that that for every entrepreneur that they should set up a podcast and that they would prosper too. But for those entrepreneurs thinking about owning their own podcast, what advice would you offer them?
Well, I used to say everybody needs a, especially entrepreneurs need to have a podcast. I backed off, so I'm glad you said that because it's not hard to do. It's not like I can't go be a CPA. I'd have to go to school or be a lawyer. I'd go to law school. I could do it. I'm not saying I can't, but there's a lot of timeline there, a lot of work that I don't want to put in because it's not my passion. But a podcast is super simple. There's 4 things that people freak out about. Time. Do I have time to do it? Do I have the money to do it? How to do it? And where do I get the guests? Well, I've solved the time problem. I can have you have a podcast when you're done out in 20 minutes, which is what I teach. Now, if you got money to produce it, then you hire a production. Then it's really simple. Because the way you want to start is record. Just start recording people on your phone, on your tab, on a Zoom, whatever. Doesn't matter. That's what I did. When I asked my mentor, Josh Tapp, October 2022, that first meeting, I was so excited. I said, I'm ready to go. What do? You can start recording. Well, when I'm not good, it doesn't matter if you're not good or not. It's the content that's more important than you. On my first podcast, everybody, this is how I started. Pretend you're my guest. Hey, Trevor, welcome to Doing Business with Sermon Clark. I'm so glad to have you.
Right, so great to be here, Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, but I clapped through the whole 30 seconds. Now I left it there. And the guy goes, hey, you're clapping the first 10, 20, whatever seconds. Says, yeah, see what happens. Because that's what Josh said. He had 100 views because it was the content. People probably laughed. Hey, he's clapping. What a goofball. That's what happened. So you don't have to be perfect to do a podcast, but you get better. Here's the thing for an entrepreneur. What did I say in the beginning? Meet people. What a way to meet people. One-on-one. Because here, when we do a one-on-one call, we did that ourselves. They're good. I get to know you. We ask questions, get to learn. A podcast, you get to learn their deepest desires, their deepest passions, their deepest troubles or challenges. And when you get information downloaded like that, boy, we're off to the races now. Well, I can help you here, or, my business does this. Would you be interested in learning more about what I can do? I'm not selling. I'm not pitching. I'm bringing value to them. I heard this problem. I think I can solve it for you. Let me show you how I can do that. And you do it. If it doesn't work, you walk away. And if it does, they become your client, or they share 3 people that could become your client.
Okay, Steve, you perfectly anticipated my challenge question then, which is what challenges have you faced as as an entrepreneur? I mean, then we'll move on to lessons to pass on to those listening. But let's talk about it's not all plain sailing. You've been very successful in what you've been doing. But what have you found personally sort of challenging along the way?
You think you have a contract signed, they're ready to go. Just happened a few months ago. Lost a lot of money. Excuse me. I didn't earn a lot of money. I didn't lose it because I didn't have it. So I'm going to replace that because that's wrong. I didn't earn that. Well, I was human for 5 minutes. That sucks. Could have changed my life. Me and my partner get on and we said, what can we do to bypass this? And here's a way entrepreneur to bypass challenges like that. Momentum. You do your humanity thing. You woe is me. Oh, poor me, poor me. And then you jump in and go, okay, who's the next person I need to meet? Who's the next book I need to read? What's the next workshop do I need to go to? What's the next this I need to do to continue the momentum? I've lived this for 10 months. It's magical.
That sounds great. But those people who are maybe stuck in poor me, sort of, and things like that, how can they extricate themselves? Because sometimes it's just a pattern of thinking, isn't it? That how are you able to get from poor me to momentum so quickly?
Super simple. I know some people are gonna fight me with it, and that's okay. Serve. I'll give you a perfect story. Oh, Trevor, you're an unbelievable host. Man, you are so good. Because that is such a great question. So it was 2:00 in the afternoon. I lost a contract. This is 3-4 years ago. 2 people didn't show up for meetings. I was going to try to build momentum. Things happen. It was not a good day. And I try to stay at my office, but I've learned, somebody had taught me that, said, get away from your office when you can. So at 2:00, I quit. I shut down. I usually do that. I'm like, am I missing something? No, I'm just going to do it. I went to the grocery store. I'm standing there. It's 2:00, so it wasn't busy. And did the name thing. Hey, I think his name is Joe. He's a surfer dude. I'm in California. So long hair, cool guy. I've seen him before, but he goes, hey, dude, how it's going? Hey, I think it's Trevor. Let's say it's Trevor, your name. And there's a lady in front of me holding the baby. And I said, hey, Trevor, can I pay for her groceries? We've all done that. Pay it forward the Starbucks thing, pay for people's coffee. But we usually don't hear the result because you drive away from Starbucks or you do your thing and away you go. And he started arguing with me and laughing like, dude, nobody does that. Like, come on, here's my card. Wasn't a lot of money, $20-$30. I don't remember. So I paid for her, paid for mine. We walk out together. And she said, thank you. I said, no problem. What's your name? Debbie. Yeah, I'm Steve. Nice to meet you. And she tears up. So I'm worried. I thought I upset her. And she goes, oh, no. And I said, I did not mean to upset you. I really just had a calling with something. I just like doing that when I'm not having a good day. She goes, oh my God, you don't know what you did. I said, what did I do? I'm like, just a bunch of groceries. Because Steve, my husband lost his job last week. I didn't know how I was going to pay for these groceries. She tears up again. And the moral of this story, the bottom line of this story was this, yeah, great, tap me on the back. I did that. And I took action. But here's the bigger part of the story. We don't know what people's shoes they're in. I didn't know that. Didn't know her. Never met her before. So how many times have we done that? We've helped people, they don't tell us. The second part of the story, when you serve, there's 3 parts. Is what is she going to do when she goes home, Trevor? What do you think she's going to do, Debbie?
She's going to talk about it.
Exactly. Can tell her husband. And a lot of times those people are going to go, what can we do? And I've never added this part of the story, but the next day when I woke up, I had one of the greatest calls I've ever had. The guy really helped me grow my business and gave me a bunch of referrals. Now, I didn't do this activity only for the sole purpose of momentum for myself, bring positivity to myself. Serving does it 100% of the time. I've never had somebody say when I served them, you're the biggest a-hole in the world. If I ever did, I probably would never serve them again.
I want to finish with 2 questions, a 2-part question, if you like. Looking ahead, what's next for you? In terms of your development of your podcast and your business, and finally, looking back, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to people who are literally just starting out on their entrepreneurial journey? So 2 parts there.
Those questions, I really love those questions. The future of my podcast and Steve Ramona is this. I've seen the impact doing business with a servant's heart message has done. Hopefully by the end of the, not hopefully, I will by the end of this year have 1 million people see that message. Now, not 1 million subscribers, not 1 million viewers, but Joe Smith watches my podcast and shares it with 3 people. Have you heard about this doing business with a servant's heart? That message gets out to 1 million people in the world, probably at a 50, 100,000 now. But that will make the impact or legacy I want to leave, because that's a legacy I will leave, that everybody has that message. I was so excited about that. What's the second question?
The second question was about advice to people who are just starting out, whether they're planning to set up a podcast or not. But what advice would you give to people who are just in making those first tentative steps along their entrepreneurial journey?
Okay, audience, I want you to participate, even though we don't see you. I want you to raise your hand if you want to double, triple, or quadruple your income in a year. I'm waiting. Okay. Those of you that raised your hand, of course, Trevor is. I have a principle I came up with that has built my business to the massive levels it has. It's called ASLA, ASLA. Ask, shut up, listen, ask. If I would have learned that 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't be on this podcast. I'd be a multimillionaire because I was never listening.
Okay.
Ask,
yes.
Shut up, listen, ask. I'll walk you through it. You meet somebody. I do this all the time. People are blown away. Trevor, what do you do for a living?
I'm an entrepreneur and I run a podcast.
Podcast. Do you enjoy doing your podcast?
I love it.
What are the challenges of doing your podcast?
Oh, well, the challenges in the early stages were finding the right quality of guests. I don't really have that problem now because I get a lot of people interested in the podcast. The challenges were a little bit to do with time, but then I realized that actually that it doesn't take that much time. And I was probably just holding myself back by not having the confidence to push that record button.
Well, let's say you need more guests. That's a perfect. And I'll ask, okay, you got enough guests, but how about for next year? I'll ask that question. You'll go, oh, yeah, I haven't thought about that. Yeah, I can book them. Well, what I learned is time and guests, because I shut up and listened. Here's the power of this. Well, Trevor, you mentioned guests. I know you have enough guests right now, but I got a couple rock stars that would blow up your podcast. They're great guests. Let me introduce you to them, and you can fit them in your schedule when you want. Now, if I asked those questions and done this and think about my lunch and think about, I got to jump on this call later. I've got this contract I got to sign. And I go, oh, that's great. How many times have you heard, oh, that's great. Oh, fantastic. Ask, shut up, and listen. I can learn what I can help you with. You cannot serve people if you don't know them. I knew nothing about you and I jump on a call. How can I serve you? Because I don't know if you need this, that, what resource or tip you need, who I introduce you to, but allows you to become a better servant's heart, but it also builds relationships, which leads to everything I mentioned in this whole podcast. Ask, shut up, listen, ask. Now, the last thing I'll add is the shut up and listen bridge. People go, shut up. Of course I'm listening. No, you're not. I'm not saying you personally, but I want you to think about this image, audience. We've all been in Zoom rooms now for a webinar, for a business meeting, and the person's video is black. Nothing against that. I always have my video on. If you want to be a servant, always have your video on. People will remember you all the time. Just a little tip. But maybe that person that video is not on, they went to go to the bathroom or the door, or something came up, associate for the business, say, hey, I need to talk to you real quick. They've shut up. They muted. But could they hear what the person's saying? Are they listening? Absolutely not. That's what shut up and listen means. It's called active listening is another thing people talk about. But I like to shut up because I will make that impact. Literally shut up. And here's one last tip. I'm going to keep giving you tips because it's what I love doing. I learned from one of my podcast guests is tap your finger on your thigh if you think you want to say something. It takes your focus away from, you're still listening, but it takes your focus away and interrupting people. Because I used to be really, really bad at that.
Well, it's kind of appropriate that Steve works in the energy industry. I mean, he's got so much of it. You can feel the electricity coming through all the way through that interview. Right from the get-go, as a young sportsman, Steve saw that entrepreneurs have to be team players and that discipline and hard work would get you a long way. That's an important lesson. And he also talked about what it meant to have a servant's heart. And sometimes that means tough conversations you may need to have along the way. And the clincher slogan that he had for me was, your network is your net worth, something that I'm finding from personal experience in running this podcast. And finally, I loved Steve's ASLA acronym, which stands for Ask, Shut Up, Listen, and Ask Again. And also to tap your finger on your thigh when you feel like interrupting someone, because you'll learn so much more from them if you can just stay quiet that little bit longer. So thank you to Steve, and thank you to all of our listeners, and for the great feedback we're getting on the show. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate and review through your usual podcast provider. And if you want to find out more about the Merri-Cast, look for me, Trevor Meriden, or our business Merriborn on merriborn.co.uk. That's it for this episode, and until next time, thanks for listening.